Bruins Beat is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
And welcome into an emergency Bruins Beat / Bruins Rinkside exclusive video with the recent news of Patrice Bergeron announcing his retirement. This video is brought to you by FanDuel. Go to our friends at FanDuel.com/Boston to get up to $200 in bonus bets. Yesterday, Connor Ryan and I recorded Bruins Beat. The title was, "What if Patrice Bergeron retires?" And on Tuesday morning, the Bruins published an essay that Patrice Bergeron wrote explaining his retirement and thanking the people that have got him to this point. The big question is, am I surprised by this? Yes and no. I think I am surprised in the sense of how good he still was, even at his age, still a number one center, won his 6th Selke in June. Like, we all expected, if he came back, he was going to be the number one center. He was going to be between Marchand and DeBrusk or, whoever else. So in that sense, I'm surprised. But there's also the other thing. Not really that surprised when you kind of zoom out and look at the whole scope of it, right? When the season ended and they lost to Florida, you saw, the embraces he had for his teammates. And granted, he did a similar thing in Carolina at the end of the 21-22 season. But this was different. I don't know. There was something different to this. And, you also look at 19 seasons he's been playing since 2003, the amount of injuries he's racked up. I mean, obviously everybody points to the 2013 Stanley Cup final where he played through like every possible ailment. But you also look at the concussion in 2007 and how that could have gone so bad so fast. And to think that from that he became a first ballot Hall of Famer is just incredible. But he's older and there's a lot of miles on that body. We said it last offseason. So a lot of wear and tear. And so for that sense, I mean, I did think he was coming back as the offseason rolled along. I thought the way things were panning out it would make sense for him to come back. But obviously, there's the other side of it, as I just alluded to. Now, as for the legacy of Patrice Bergeron, I mean, the ultimate pro. We say that a lot in sports, guy's an ultimate pro. He's the consummate pro. But this was a pro's pro. Just all around incredible professional athlete. I mean, I'll ask the question, has anyone been so perfect? Has anyone been so perfect on and off the ice? Played the right way, just the ultimate two-way center. The fact that there are defensive highlights of his on YouTube, and those are almost more exciting than a lot of offensive highlights for most players. Always found a way to produce, always found a way to contribute. And then off the ice, I mean, he said all the right things. He did all the right things. Good guy, thoughtful guy. And I'm ecstatic to see what he does in his post-playing career because I think, the world is his oyster. I think he can sort of do what he wants. Does he stay involved with the team? Does he do something in hockey? Does he become a team president, a general manager? I think there's a lot of options there for him to do. And there were similar things we said with Chara when Chara retired. I think the legacy he leaves, when I was kind of drafting this mini episode out before coming on, you look at his impact on the last 20 years, but I think it's very easy to also say his legacy and his impact on the Bruins culture is going to last for the next 20 years. And I think that's most impressive. I think that is, to do that in the NHL, to have the continued success. I mean, since 2003, the amount of success, regular season and going into the playoffs, we'll get to the Stanley Cup thing in a second, but just looking at consistency, it was incredible. And he was the leader of that, along with Zdeno Chara. Obviously, David Krejci's involved in that. Brad Marchand's involved in that. You get the Mark Recchi in there. But Bergeron's at the front of that. And the legacy, the ability to change the culture here. I mean, I know Chara was instrumental in that, as I said, but Bergeron's a large part of it. And it's interesting because, even though Chara was always the captain, Bergeron is an assistant, they were really co-captains. They were always co-captains. And that's what it felt like. And Bergeron was Boston's own. Drafted him, developed him, came up, I think, as an 18-year-old kid, had immediate success. And, I think Boston has had the ups and downs with Patrice Bergeron and his, the injuries in his career, as I mentioned, the concussion in 2007, and all of that. So, and his ability to lead, just it's hard to, I don't think it's hard to find a better captain than him. And, the example he set, again, there were guys around him that helped, obviously. And I'm not diminishing anyone's contributions to it. I mean, Chara, as I said, co-captain. So having Chara there was helpful, and Marchand. But I mean, even Marchand, you look at Bergeron's impact on Marchand alone, right? Like Marchand comes in, probably a projected fourth liner, maybe jumps to the third line. And sort of with Bergeron's guidance, he helps guide him into being, a legitimate scoring threat. And on top of it, helps kind of his maturity. And you could probably point to a lot of different guys. I mean, you hear the stories of, even guys who are healthy scratches who come to Boston for a year, kind of mentioning how the impact Patrice Bergeron had on them. So the culture he set, the legacy, how good of a leader he was. I think I don't think it's a stretch to say we probably won't see someone like Patrice Bergeron ever again. Just the all-encompassing of perfect play style, perfect guy off the ice, and just kind of the whole package was Patrice Bergeron.
The CLNS Media Network is powered by FanDuel. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed.
The one thing is one more cup would have been nice. One more cup would have been nice. I know no one's going to want to hear that right now, but it's the truth. I mean, the 2011 Stanley Cup, will be historic and live forever and adds to his legacy a ton. If they just could have pulled out one in 2019 or 2013, I think it just adds more. And I think that goes for Chara, that goes for Krejci, it goes for Marchand unless he wins another. Like, it just would have been perfect for this Bruins core with Patrice Bergeron at the front of it to get a second cup, to get a second Stanley Cup. And, one is awesome. And again, we point to the regular season success. We point to the playoff runs. They certainly had a number of those. I just think one more Stanley Cup would have been really nice. And that's not Bergeron's fault. It's a team game. But I think if we could say, 2011 and 2019 or 2011 and 2013, I just think it helps. He's still a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's still everyone's favorite Bruin, at least as of today. I think, it's, I saw some people on Twitter saying, they had favorite Bruins in the past, Ray Bourque and Johnny Busick and Bobby Orr, but Bergeron almost, is either right there with him or moved, ahead in some people's eyes. I'm not going to get into the history debate of debating Bergeron versus Bobby Orr and stuff. That can be for another day. That can be another day we can do. But again, one more cup just would have been nice. That's it. One more cup would have been nice. That's my only thing. And that's not him. It's not, that's not a him thing. That's a team thing. The big question coming from this, where do the Bruins go from here? And Connor and I kind of touched on it in the podcast we recorded on Monday, which is up on audio wise. I don't know if it's up on YouTube yet or not. If we're even going to put it up, but I know if you want to go listen to it, you can go look up Bruins Beat on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, because it'll be there. Where do the Bruins go from here? It doesn't help. It does not help. But again, this is sort of an issue on the Bruins end that they've had years to sort of try to figure out. What is life going to be like post Bergeron? And again, we assume Krejci. Right now as it stands, it's Coyle and Zacha as your 1 and 2 center. Again, that's not ideal. We've talked about this. I think Charlie Coyle can kind of hold his own there. He has not proven yet that he can be a number 1 center. He's had a tough time staying in the top 6 in general. So, and he's optimized best as a third line center. Now, if they do nothing else, they're going to need him to step up and be a number 1 center. Going forward, I think the number 1 goal, though, is how do you either acquire a number 1 center or how do you acquire a first round pick? This is much harder. How do you acquire a first round pick to then try to get a potential 1C? And again, that center, if you go the draft route, that center might not be coming in for another 2 to 3 years, maybe more. And it's also no guarantee that your draft pick, whether it, wherever it is in the first round, can pan out to be a number one center. With the core they have in place, again, Pastrnak, McAvoy, Lindholm, Swayman, you want to include Ullmark in that, you want to include Carlo, Zacha, like there's a solid core. They don't need to blow this up. There's no reason to blow things up here. I don't want to see any tweets or comments be like, the Bruins need to tear it down. A retool though would help. And that's not tearing it down. That is simply trading off some parts to get something that you need. And that's a number one center. So that's the safer route. The safer route is if you can put some pieces together, whether it's now, whether it's down the road, trading for a number one center, whether that's, again, all obvious names right now are like Elias Lindholm from the Calgary Flames, Mark Scheifele from the Winnipeg Jets. But, the Bruins can be crafty. There's other names out there and they could go that route, So I think that's the smarter move. I think you have Pavel Zacha as your 2C. You have Zacha there. You don't desperately need a 2C. Now they might look at this season and say, you know what? We have a good solid core in place. We just don't really have a number one center, but we're going to roll the dice and we're going to see where Coyle and Zacha take us. Maybe that's what they do, because they don't have a heck of a ton of salary cap space and the trade market's not great. So even if you did trade off Ullmark, in a normal season, you probably get, a top 6 center for Ullmark. This season, you're probably not getting that. So, again, Connor Ryan and I and Joe Haggerty on the Pucks with Hags podcast, and whoever else we have on, we'll be discussing for the rest of the summer, where do the Bruins go from here. But overall, I look at the main news obviously today, Patrice Bergeron retiring, just an incredible career. And we've said it all. I mean, that's the one thing I think that we can all be fortunate about with Patrice Bergeron's career is I think towards the end, everyone understood and was appreciative and no one took it for granted. So I think there's always that. And I mean, again, I don't think we'll ever see someone like him. I don't. The well-roundedness, as I said, has just been has been incredible, and it's been a hell of a career. And you didn't, even opposing fans, nobody, you didn't root against Patrice Bergeron. You might have hated him when he played your team, but you respected him and you loved watching him play, because he just was that all-around game that I think every youth hockey player, every high school hockey player, every college hockey player, every NHL player should be aspiring to model their game after, as a two-way force. And he embodied it like no other. So that has been this sort of emergency episode of Bruins Beat. Patrice Bergeron retires. We'll have more throughout the rest of the offseason, throughout the rest of the week. And before I go, I must say, have a great rest. At least try your best to have a great rest your week.